other panelists. So first, we're going to let Rachel have the opportunity to introduce herself. So how's it going?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Thanks for having me this week. So I'm a consultant psychiatrist in the NHS, but I'm also a functional medicine practitioner, stroke psychiatrist privately. And I don't know what people want to know about me, but I've been carnivore for about 4.5 years now. And I've stumbled across various people in the group call tonight at various times along that journey. So I'm just all about really metabolic approaches to mental health, particularly. And we were just having a chat before about how there's just so much more work that's needed in that particular field. And certainly, I don't know, it's hard to really explain, but there's just been an absolute explosion in mental health problems, particularly over the last 2 or 3 years. So I work in a crisis service in the NHS, so we're sort of frontline when people are acutely unwell or suicidal or whatever it may be. It's good to be here.
Excellent. Well, thank you for joining us and the kind words. I wanted to ask Phil about his red glasses. What are they for, Phil?
Well, it's because I'm a drummer. I'm a rock star. I have to wear stuff like this. No, it's all about circadian biology, isn't it? It's I found out a long time ago. It was probably about 2011, and I discovered all Jack Kruse's stuff, and I was completely crippled with psoriatic arthritis and whatever, and I hadn't been sleeping. I was sleeping a couple of minutes here and there, and I read Jack Kruse's stuff, and I read his cold thermogenesis and all the sort of, cut out blue light at night. And I thought, right, I'll take a really freezing cold bath. And I was totally emaciated at the time, having lost about 90 pounds on veganism, and then coming over to keto and doing cold thermogenesis and blasting the last of the fat out. And I was really skinny. And I took a really cold bath and I put some blue blockers on. And I thought, it's not going to do any good. I haven't been sleeping, whatever. The cold bath took out a lot of the inflammation. I thought, I can't even sleep in the bed with my missus because I'm just shivering so bad. So I went into my son's room, who was away at university at the time. And I got into bed thinking I'm not going to sleep at all. And I woke up 10 hours later and I hadn't even moved. And I thought there's something in this. And so since then, I've just always taken care of blue light at night. So I don't think it's ideal. If I've got a little bit of blue light coming off the light here, and it still goes into the skin, still goes straight into the thyroid and whatever. But I think having cut out the blue light at night and having all sort of salt lamps, red bulbs, candles. We have a couple of snakes, so we've got a corn snake and a boa constrictor, and the only light in the living room is just their red LEDs. A couple of them in the cages at night. We've even got a red screen over the TV, and it's made a huge difference to sleep, even to the kids, because you can't get them to wear blue blockers. This is the first time I've worn them. Our house is so blue light friendly at night that I don't need to wear them. But I realized that with the red light, I was so dark last week that I put some blue blockers on and put a bit of ordinary light up, or almost ordinary. But it even makes it, because I have two other kids at 15 and 8. He's now, I can hear him. Maybe you can hear him really arguing about having his hair washed. But it helps them definitely to go to sleep quicker and easier at night. Huge. It's not all about diet, eh? All these ancestral disconnects.
Yeah, completely. I was just curious what the other panelists have found to be useful in terms of like biohack. So obviously Phil's mentioned cold thermogenesis, red light therapy. Are there other things that you guys also do? And perhaps which ones do you find more impactful? So I'll probably start with Rachel, then go to Stephen, then to Richard at the bottom.
Okay, yeah, sure. So I'm obviously sitting here in a red light and wearing blue blockers as well. So I'm much more recent in terms of getting into all the optimizing circadian rhythms, but I find it makes a huge difference. I've changed over bulbs in my house as well. And in fact, I do have a child who will wear blue blockers at home. So there you go. He's also keto as well, almost carnivore. But anyway, yeah. And also on the cold thermogenesis side of things, that's again something I'm fairly just recently been getting into, but I just think it's absolutely amazing. So I've just got one of those relatively inexpensive blow up plunge pool things in my back garden, and I was a bit nervous about starting it, but it just makes you feel phenomenal, especially on days like if I've had a really stressful day and come home with, you know, what, one of those persistent headaches that you just can't shift. There's nothing else that helps it more than just doing a cold plunge, and it just makes you feel completely renewed. So I'm sort of diving into all of the research about that whenever I get time, and starting to talk about that with people that I see professionally as well. And I've also been getting into sauna therapy too. So I'm trying to do that a bit more regularly, because I think we live in such a toxic world that really we all need that to detox from some of the environmental pollutants that inevitably end up in our fat stores, including our brain. So yeah, that's me.
Steve, you up?
Oh, I was being polite there. I was waiting for Jonathan to sort of respond to Rachel and say that was wonderful. So I'll say it. Yeah, that was wonderful. Right. So I'm not all bathed in red. Strangely enough, bathed in blue, but it's behind me actually, like my best years. But yeah, biohacking. I don't really call it that. So let's start with the TV. So Phil made me laugh there because he puts a red shield over his TV. We just basically got rid of the TV. So that's been about 10, 15 years. I got lots of stories about that, but I'm not actually going to get into that. But that's, for my peace of mind, about the best thing I did. And people, to be honest, when I go to the gym, which I've only just started to do because I was using the X3 at home, I've gone back to the gym. And if I see the news on, I actually laugh because it's like a parody. It is just ridiculous. So for my peace of mind, I don't watch that junk. I don't watch any TV really. I'm not a snob. If people like TV, that's great. I'm okay with films. So we do have a screen that occasionally we'll watch film on. That's it. Cold showers I've done, which I do enjoy. I think Rach was right about these cheap blow up cold plunge things. I did put that down on my Christmas list. I think when I did the cold showers, it's amazing how it does make you feel incredible. I would say the biggest biohack, and sorry to be boring, is the carnivore diet. I know we're talking about things that aren't the carnivore diet, but that is, all those other things would not be working as well without the diet part of things. I've tried blue blockers, the glasses there that feels looking very cool wearing. I just can't get on with them, but I know they're good, so I'm not belittling them. I know that if I do a lot of screen work like I have today, I don't feel as optimal as if I have a day away from the screen, which is very rare. Always stand at my meetings, so I don't sit. I know that's a bit old-fashioned and conventional, you know, compared to all this tech, but I think sitting is not as good as standing. So, and I think my choice would be standing, lying, and sitting last. But there's an old Monty Python sketch where they go back to when they invented the chair. And one of the characters says, "What have you invented?" He said, "Well, you can sit higher up." So, you know, it's good to sit on the floor and lay on the floor, I think, or on the grass. But anyway, right. So that's that. I can't think of any other biohacks. I'm pretty boring when it comes to, you know, not eating when it's dark and, you know, basically trying to follow the sun. I'm in the gym early, so that's a bit of artificial light, you know, at 6:30. It's the sun is sort of coming up. Do you remember the sun? We're in the UK. It's Team GB. We don't know what the sun is, but you know that occasional thing that you see that is coming up. So yeah, I'm up sort of 6:30 in the gym, and I just feel that all the things. Oh, grounding, that's another one. And actually, I really want to get into that. The grounding sheets. I'm barefoot now, and we've got a grounding sheet on the bed, grounding stuff. Where if I do sit, for instance, to read, then there's a grounding sheet that we've got there as well. Getting outdoors is about the best thing you can possibly do. Absolutely the best thing. If I don't go out for a day, because the weather's terrible and it's very busy, I know that's detrimental. Sorry, long answer, but yeah, that's me. Oh, and
just a little quick one before Richard jumps in. Have you got iris tech on your computer, Stephen, to get rid of the blue light and have different settings at night and stuff? Then you don't need the blue blockers.
No, but you can send me a message about that. And the other thing is things like reverse osmosis water, actually. Don't drink tap water. To be honest, if I'd have thought this question was going to come up, there's probably a lot more stuff that I do than I've mentioned. But yeah, that'll do for now.
Fantastic. Thanks for leaving me absolutely nothing to talk about. No, I agree with everything there. The biggest change for me, I think, the biggest bang for your buck is always going to come from a healthy lifestyle. And again, I believe that to be a more animal-based lifestyle. When we look at lots of so-called antioxidants from plants and vegetables, they're not actually antioxidants, they're pro-oxidants. And they activate something called the NRF2 pathway, which is an oxidative stress pathway. But it's believed that these plants will have an antioxidant effect through first beginning their journey as pro-oxidants. And it's called hormesis, where we put a little something that's bad for the body in and we have a positive effect. But this effect of hormesis from plants doesn't really exist. So plants from antioxidants from plants don't really exist, because other things that will activate this NRF2 pathway are things like mercury, lead, arsenic, tobacco smoke, exhaust fumes, and they will have this impact on glutathione, which is the body's master antioxidant. In the same way, the plants will. So if we are to believe the plants form or supply any antioxidant benefit, then we must also resign to the fact that lead, arsenic, mercury, and all of these things confer a benefit. And we know they don't. But what does work, everything that you guys have just mentioned, heat therapy, cold therapy, they actually are true forms of hormesis. I opt usually for heat because I don't like the cold so much, although I believe there's probably more of a benefit from cold therapy. I try to walk barefoot as often as I can. I try to get out in the sun as often as I can, but obviously being office bound most of the time, I don't get as much UVA as I'd like. But one of the things that you guys haven't mentioned, which I've just started practicing with my 9-year-old little girl, is my affirmations. So when I'm driving my little girl to school in the morning, I get her to tell me 3 things that she's grateful for. And it's quite difficult, because once you come past a week or two, these things start to become a little bit scarce. You tend to repeat yourself. But even little things. We were driving to school this morning, and it was something as simple as, I'm grateful that we've got a car to drive to school in because it's raining. And then other days, if we're walking, I'm grateful to be walking because the sun is out. But it's I've noticed that her attitude has changed. Little girls playing on her iPad, which I'm not a big fan of. I thought that was a fantastic tool when she was younger, and it taught her lots of things, loads of good games on there, which enabled her with her counting skills, her math skills, and spelling. A fantastic tool, but I think that we abuse it. So I make sure that she has downtime, so at specific times of the day, the pad goes down and it's bedtime. Yeah, and where I've lost my trail of thought with that pad buddy comment now, but it's those little things, isn't it? But I think every one of the comments that you've just made is a positive one. But affirmations is a big one for me. That's what I was going. So she, on the pad within these social networks and talking to their friends, they get sucked into this society And I've noticed that she started saying things recently that she definitely hasn't got from myself or her mother. It's either come from school or things that she's picked up on YouTube. Words that I'm not too fond of, especially for a 9-year-old little girl. And her attitude, she's become incredibly loud and aggressive towards her mother on occasions. But she doesn't do it to me because she's daddy's little girl. But I obviously treat her a little bit different than her mum does. But what I've noticed is since we've implemented these affirmations, it's calmed her right down, and she's more thankful for the things that, the little things, the things that make life worth living. So it isn't about diet, but I believe that's the catalyst that starts us. It certainly started me on my journey. Diet, and then we begin to look at all of these other things. Again, as you say, water, you know, all of these additives within foods. We become, we gravitate deeper down this rabbit hole. And what started as low carb, for me, has now turned into strict carnivore. So softly.
Richard, I've got to jump in and say that was absolutely brilliant, because I didn't think about going down that kind of path. And affirmations and gratitude, as somebody who spent, decades as a vegetarian yogi, and that's probably one of the only useful spiritual techniques I think that's left to people, is just absolutely having gratitude, and it takes away so much stress. And you mentioned your daughter learning words that she shouldn't really have learned. Well, I'm a terrible dad. I kind of teach my kids that stuff, and I don't mind as long as they use it in the right time and they use it to me and they don't use it at school. Because my son, who's 8, I went to school the other day for like a parents' evening, and they were gushing, and this is amazing to me because as my kids, who are 33, 15, and 8, have grown up, and I brought the first one up vegetarian, and he had loads of issues with digestion, had a whole vertebra removed from his neck and replaced with titanium, and aneurysmal bone cyst, another autoimmune weird thing, all of that. And then learning as I went along. And Peter, who's 8, he's basically had nothing but breast milk and meat and the odd bit of chocolate, and the development is amazing, and he knows exactly when to do naughty things and when not to. And they're gushing about him, and I said to them, at school, well, does he never swear at school? And they said, no. I said, that's amazing. And they were astonished, because he's just amazing. But as soon as he comes in, he's foul-mouthed little bugger. But the wit from some child, I think, that has only had breast milk and meat. I mean, for example, the other day he said to me out of the blue, Dad, you haven't got boobies. You're a fucking disappointment. I just thought, I'm so proud of him. I might be a bad dad. I thought that was hilarious. I said to him, well, I used to have boobies when I ate plants.
Yeah, snap.
Anyway, yeah, brilliant, Richard. Yeah, everybody, not only about carnivore diet, affirmations, gratitude, beautiful. Well done.
Yeah, well said. You've not left much room for me here, guys. I'd say, without really expanding on each reason why, but I'd say for me, the first one would be the carnivore diet. I know a lot of you guys probably agree with that. Second one for me would be, I'd say exercise. I've got to have a bit of a bias towards that, of course. Not so much because I think exercise is a must or it's the end all be all. I just think it coincides a lot of the things with it. So for me, sometimes I actually exercise outside. Sometimes I'm grounded. Sometimes I'm getting the right light exposure. Sometimes I think I'm having a bad day. It can take my mind somewhere else. It gives me another point to focus on. For a lot of young people like myself, it's not so common now to socialize and go to the pub and things like that. I don't see many young people in the pub, at least in my area. So having an avenue or an outlet to socialize is also important. So I'll probably put that in, probably behind light, or maybe before even the appropriate light exposure. So I'll probably say, a social group, a networking sort of thing. I think that's really important as well. So it kind of touches what Richard says in a way as well.
Yeah, I agree, because when you look at the blue zones, or the so-called effect of the blue zones, one of the things that they all have in common is a solid support network, and I think that's incredibly important. Something we take for granted quite often, and that's the beauty of our little get-togethers. Isn't it? We've got, beyond family, we've got a fantastic support network within the community that we all operate in. Rachel, within your profession, have you found diet having a severe impact on what you do? And with that, I mean, when I look into neurotransmitter signals in regards to what leads to depression, anxiety, suicide, all of this sort of stuff, the food that we eat massively impacts the catecholaminergic neurotransmitters within the brain and how they are formed. And foods that we consume, like grains, will block the body's ability to absorb the cofactors involved with creating the neurotransmitters. I used to suffer severely with depression and anxiety. And since I came away from grains in particular, I felt a lot happier. Since I became carnivore, even happier again. Do you think the food can play a massive role into this? I think I already know the answer, but I'd love to get your opinion.
Oh, well, yeah, 100%. I just wish more people in the mental health field would actually be open to the idea that food can make all the difference in terms of mental health. And I really struggle these days, to be honest, working in mainstream medicine, because just thinking about the way we've been trained and the whole model of medical training these days, it's all about make a diagnosis to prescribe a medication. And professionals are split up into silos of different specialties, and the body is a whole. Everything is interconnected. So yeah, you're absolutely right what you say about all the catecholamines and neurotransmitters, but I also have a massive interest in gut health and the whole gut-brain connection. So that's another angle to it all.
And most of the neurotransmitters are made in the gut, don't they? 95% of those neurotransmitters are made in the gut. And if we look at PEP, phosphoenolpyruvate, the input to the shikimate pathway, that is completely wiped out, isn't it, by glyphosate, the herbicide used to treat plants. So it all seems to, a big portion of it for me seems to come back to the foods that we are consuming. So again, it comes back to gut health and what we're putting in.
Yeah, absolutely. Because our neurotransmitters are made primarily from the foods that we eat. And if you're putting rubbish in, you're going to get rubbish out, putting it quite simply. And yeah, I've started, it's a fairly small metabolic psychiatry clinic within the NHS where I work, but I happened to have that clinic this afternoon. And it was my first patient actually who ever tried a ketogenic diet. Somebody who has bipolar disorder, and she did incredibly well on it after having been quite severely unwell for the best part of a year. And it was just a really nice consultation today, because it's complicated because, as you'll know, people can end up with all sorts of different symptoms, from like migraines or colitis, a whole myriad of different sort of medical complaints. But we were just going through kind of the food diary today and what's happened over the last few months since I last saw them. And it was very obvious, because it was somebody who she fell off the wagon a bit and started eating junk food briefly, and a whole host of difficulties cropped up, including massive rashes and deterioration in other physical health symptoms, but also deterioration in mood and anxiety. And that's all improving again now that they're back to doing keto. Although they're almost carnivore, actually, this person that I'm thinking of. But it was nice today to see them, because they were just very complimentary at the end, and they see a couple of other psychiatrists locally as well who manage medications and that side of things. But they said to me, "Oh, you're an absolute legend," and she said it a couple of times, and it's just a really nice feeling, because it just gives me personally so much hope that there's so much more that can be done in terms of optimizing people's mental health that just really isn't mainstream yet, or what most people will find when they go to their usual GP or psychiatrist, for example.
No, that's brilliant, Rachel. And Richard, you mentioned the glyphosate, and just last week I had Natasha Campbell McBride on my podcast, and she's been such a hero of mine for like 13 odd years. And I read her GAPS book, where she fixed her son's autism and whatever on a well, basically a very low carb diet, but she was a bit more into the sort of boiled veg back then. She's kind of dumped that over the years, but she said something that kind of really clarified it for me in our chat. And she said, you know, I was asking her about vegetables and whatever, and she said, well, if you've got 100% gut integrity, vegetables, despite all their toxins, probably won't harm you. Not that anybody's got healthy because of vegetables, but they've stayed healthy despite them because the gut protects you against them. But because we eat everything from a supermarket, where pretty much everything can be traced back to some sort of a crop that's been sprayed with glyphosate, which is basically a broad spectrum antibiotic. So every time we eat from a supermarket, and a big thing is never go to a supermarket, it's destroying our guts to the extent that we cannot take those 136 carcinogens that Anthony often talks about in Brussels sprouts, or 60 in the least toxic veg that we'd have been protected against before. But now with these trashed guts, we just can't take that stuff anymore. Because people, I mean, how many times have people said to any of us, oh, well, my grandmother ate, you know, potatoes and veg and whatever, and lived to 99 and smoked 100 ciggies a day and whatever. Yeah, but she grew up in a time where they weren't spraying the crops with that stuff. And I've kind of ignored it and thought, well, okay, it's down to the actual veg. It probably isn't, actually. Not that any of us need it or any of them have got any benefits whatsoever. But once our guts have been wrecked by eating antibiotics every single day, and Natasha really kind of clarified that. So seriously, have a look if anybody's watching. It's the Red Pill Buddhas podcast, Natasha Campbell McBride. Because I asked her specifically, I had about 20 questions. I said, the first one was really, what causes autoimmunity? And like 20 minutes later, she finished. I thought, I'm not going to get through all these questions. But she was so eloquent with it. And then I said, well, what about veg? And she went, I'm going to give you another long answer. So that was 40 minutes of it. But it's a great chat. She really kind of clarifies that. She's so eloquent. And I think she's got a real point that I don't think any of these plants are necessary. I think they're all harmful. But we were always protected from them because the body is a very powerful thing. But nowadays, with the gut down to like 10% integrity or whatever, and then a whole load of Brussels sprouts and pasta or whatever will take it 15% down, then we're in trouble. So yeah, I think this whole pesticide thing is pretty important, actually. Even in the meat we've been fed, although, you know, obviously animals have livers to take this stuff out, and it's not so bad. We all see great healing on people who just go carnivore from cheaper supermarket meat, but there's still an element there. Interesting.
Yeah, well said. I'm going to take a look at the questions now. We've got 6 lined up already. For about half an hour to get through them. So I'm just going to put my hand up if I can answer them. And the same with you guys. If you want to unmute to answer a question, feel free, and you have the opportunity to do it, of course. I'm just going to go through the order that they've appeared on the stream. So the first question is from Ben, and it says, I'd like you all to discuss whether ApoB is a concern on the carnivore diet. I've asked the question on other channels, but the community doesn't seem to have a definitive answer. Thank you. This might be up Stephen's channel, but we'll see. What do you think, Stephen?
I thought you asked us to put our hands up. I was being a good boy. Well, I can give you a short answer and then go over to Rich or Phil or Rachel for a long answer. The Apolipoprotein B is part of the LDL particle. And all you're doing is, well, all the mainstream is doing is making another argument for LDL being a problem, because it's a problem by proxy. That's the thing. So apolipoprotein A is attached to HDL. That's just the protein that tells everybody else what it is and what the receptors respond to. So if you've got more apolipoprotein B, you've got more LDL, and by that, every single study you ever look at, it just harps back to LDL is problematic. So that's the definitive answer. It's the same thing that's always dragged up, just dressed up in a different way. I'm not going to get into particle size and oxidation and all that sort of stuff, I'm answering that question, which is it concern? No, it isn't, because all they're saying is if you've got a lot of that, basically, this is really paraphrasing, you must have a lot of LDL, and we all know LDL is a problem. So that's my answer on that one.
Yeah, LDL, my LDL is, last time I tested, 8 point something. My overall cholesterol, I think, was something like 10.26. Am I concerned? Yeah, I wish it was higher. LDL heals and repairs the body. And I think cholesterol is massively misunderstood. Every cell in the body is made of cholesterol. It's essential for cell formation, cell communication, nutrient absorption, nutrient transportation, the production of hormones, and it's essential for healing. We can't live without cholesterol. We shouldn't be fearing it. We should be promoting it. And as Stephen said, the ApoB100 receptor is an access card to the liver. That's what allows access to the liver for it to be recycled and sent back out on its journey again to heal and repair the body. That's what LDL does. I'm not fearful of cholesterol at all. I think cholesterol, as Steve averted there, can become damaged. It can become oxidized and glycated, oxidized through excess seed oil consumption and glycated through excess carbohydrate consumption. I think if you are living a low-carb, ketogenic, carnivore lifestyle, then cholesterol is not a concern whatsoever. And we can go to town on this, but it'll probably take another 20 minutes to half an hour. So I'll wrap it up there, unless you want a little bit more. But yeah, cholesterol is not a concern to me. ApoB is not a concern, and I wish mine was higher.
Could I just add one thing I noticed in the week? One of these people talking about LDL, and it was sort of like a takedown video. Just the way I see it, but I'm happy for everyone else to tell me I'm thinking about this wrong. They were defending LDL, and they were saying they were looking at this chart where the higher LDL was, the longer you lived. Okay, that's NHAIS data. And their argument was, well, the reason it's low is because you have diseases. So those diseases, those people are dying because they've got diseases, and that's why they've got low LDL. And I just screamed out, well, those with high LDL haven't got the diseases. How is this an argument? It was ridiculous. But that is a real common one, apparently, that to argue that chart, which I think most people have probably seen in the BMJ, that the low LDL is irrelevant at that end, because it must be the diseases using up. So anyway, I wanted to add that in. That is how ridiculous the LDL argument is.
Yeah, interesting stuff.
Just a quick one there. That these boys here, Stephen, Richard, probably Jonathan, Rachel, everybody here is much cleverer than me, and they understand all of these biophysical pathways, and all that sort of thing. And I understand a bit of it, but I think the problem sometimes comes from calling it the carnivore diet, like it's some kind of weird diet. This is our ancestral diet. And then when people ask something, I think Ken Berry put something up a while ago, didn't he? When he said, put up a meme, is the carnivore diet good for filling your ailment here? Substitute carnivore diet for our ancestral species appropriate diet. Is that bad for my thyroid? Or whatever. And then it's really very simple to me. Like, how can it be? Any other animal, vet goes into the zoo, something wrong with a monkey, like, what's been happening? Well, he's been eating sandwiches and Haribo. Well, that's the problem. Feed him his ancestral diet, and that's it. And so if we think of it as our ancestral diet, there's nothing really that any harm it can't do really any harm. But sometimes in the transition phase, there can be some weird stuff that goes on where you get some weird blood markers. But are they weird blood markers? No, because they are set there for pizza eaters and whatever. So it's fine. How do you feel? You feel good? It's probably all right.
Yeah, well said. Do either of you guys have anything to say on that? Maybe Rachel or so.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said so far. And just to add that the brain is loaded with cholesterol. So it's just never made any sense to me really why we would want to artificially lower cholesterol. It's in the brain, it surrounds, and all of the nerve sheaths are made of cholesterol. So I was doing an interview with somebody very recently, and they said a relatively young friend of theirs had been put on a statin at a young age. And when I say young, probably about 30, just for having a slightly high cholesterol. And then they subsequently developed MS. And it's not too difficult to see where potential connections between the two could come from. And yeah, I think I beat you, Richard. So I think my last cholesterol test was 10.7 that I checked. And I'm very happy with that. No fear
for
here.
sure. It's interesting.
I'm gonna have to get some kind of a blood test, aren't I? Because I don't look at that kind of thing.
Yeah, do you know?
I just don't go near doctors. Do they do them down at the local chippy or the laundrette or something like that? So I don't want to go near doctors.
You can. I order mine through MediChecks online, so I don't go to the doctor anymore. I get mine done, but I don't do it for my benefit. I do it in order to show clients and customers. It's nice to keep a track of, but whatever my readings are, that's my natural physiological level. I'm fit and healthy, so it is of no concern to me. And as Steve's mentioned plenty of times in the past, these levels and readings taken from blood tests fit into a normal range, but the normal person is unwell. So why would we want to be in that normal range anyway? But it's interesting, Rachel, what you said about the statins. I work with someone who works with Parkinson's patients, and statins are the first thing that they take their patients off, which kind of says it all, I think. But
oh yeah.
Yeah. And do you know, just to tell you this really quickly, when I left school, I wanted to join the army. I had a thing about, guns, and I wanted to be on the front line and, action man and all this sort of stuff. So I went for a test, a physical test and an aptitude test, which involved like an IQ test, basically. I didn't score high enough to even go into an inventory. So this is how low my IQ was when I left school. Since I found the ketogenic carnivore type lifestyle, all of my food is, I eat as nature intended, our species appropriate diet, as Phil eloquently said, full of natural fats, cholesterol. I've done 3 IQ tests since, which are Mensa qualified tests, since I've been keto and carnivore, and I scored 128 on one, 136 on another, and 149 or 594. The last one was 1 point lower than Einstein. And that's since I've been eating saturated fats, and I attribute it down to that, because as you say, the brain is made of cholesterol. I was obviously heavy devoid of all of these substances that I needed for my brain to function properly. And I may not be the sharpest tool in the box now, but I'd like to think that I would at least qualify for inventory within the army.
Oh, well done! I got a 136 back in my vegetarian days, and I was absolutely thick as pig shit back then.
You're 200 now.
Yeah, well, absolutely. You're much brighter than me, so I'm going to have to retest anyway, see if I can at least squeeze out over 140. But it's interesting you say about you're doing these blood tests for the benefit of others. And I did one a while ago when they were saying to me, the vegans were attacking me on my YouTube channel, saying, you're diabetic and you're going to die of heart disease and all that. You're diabetic like Sean Baker. I don't know where they get that from. All that sort of thing. And so I went and had some tests, and they were all over the place ages ago. And I got all the tests done, and they sort of focused in on the cholesterol. And the nurse who was reading them said to me, well, everything's okay, but your LDL's up a bit. And I said, oh, excellent. That's where I want it, because I'm on a very high fat, zero carb diet. She said, oh, cool. That's great. It's just a con to sell statins. And I went, hey, even the NHS have. And so, obviously I relayed that to the vegans on the YouTube channel, and they said, well, yeah, your LDL's up, so obviously you're going to die of heart disease. So it was a waste of time anyway. But yeah, that's I understand. It's just for the benefit of others, isn't it? But that was a while ago. Maybe I should do another one and an IQ test. Thank you, Richard. I'll get onto it.
My IQ is about 3, probably. I don't know. I ignore those sort of things because I'm autistic. It doesn't show a true picture of what my intelligence actually is. It's not an accurate representation, I don't think, so I don't bother. But do you have a particular glass company that you buy your glasses from? Mine that I am not wearing right now are linked below all of my videos in my show notes. That's Carnivore Muscle. It says blue blockers, and there's a Amazon link or something. What brand do you guys wear? I know, Phil, you're quite keen on the ones you wear.
I've had some, I bought loads of cheap ones. There's some on my YouTube channel. I've done some reviews, but it's really simple to me. I've got the drums in the background there, the practice kit I'm on, and there's an amp and there's a little blue LED. You put them on, if you can still see the blue, then they're crap. And if you can't, they're good. But it's the quality of the lenses. And these, I think, are blue blocks, or what they're called now, Bond Charge. That's Andy Mant. It just happens that I know Andy Mant, and I know, what's the other one? Raw Optics, Matt Maruka. And I just kind of know both of them. They sent me some free ones, and they're fantastic, But, Andy Mant's English, he's in Australia, but they send them through really quick, and the customer support is very good, and they're very good lenses. So I just, that old thing of buy cheap, buy twice. I'm sure there's other brands, but for me, Blue Blocks and Bond Charge are the ones that I'm used to. That's it, really.
Yeah, and I've got a few different pairs. I've always bought from Block Blue Light UK, which is a website that has all different brands of glasses, but they've all been really good quality and definitely block the blue, so I can recommend them.
Yeah, well said. I think there's a few ways you can go about it. Ideally, you've got the RS software on your screen, so you don't look at directly blue light. Ideally, no screens at all. I've got a red light lamp thing here, which I actually find extremely effective. This cost me like £30. I know it works because my heart rate goes down and my blood pressure goes down when I use it. That's the best indicator I really have, besides some expensive test in the skin or something, I don't know. And I wear blue blockers. If I go to concert, I'll wear pit vipers or blue blockers, which is quite strange to people, but they sort of work. They block out a lot of the strobe lights, which tend to wear me out. I find it quite overly stimulating, so it annoys the hell out of me, and I get irritable and no one likes me. So it's best for everyone else, I think. I'm guessing, Richard, do you wear these at all, or do you not use them at the moment?
I don't, and for no other reason other than I haven't got around to buying a pair. So I will jump on one of your guys' recommendations. But yeah, it's one of those things that I've just kept avoiding, to be honest. But for no other reason other than either forgetting or just, being lazy.
Yeah, if you stare at a screen past 6-7 o'clock at night, well worth it. I know the people here. You guys are always doing stuff on socials, meetings, Q&As, lives, consultations, all hours. So it's a good thing to try out. You might be like me. You might find it to be a game changer.
Yeah,
so,
I think so.
I'd also say definitely get iris on the screens, because it's not just the blue light; it's also the flicker. So people get flux or F-lux or whatever on there, and it cuts the blue light, but it doesn't cut the flicker. You don't notice it, but your brain does. And so that's a reason to get iris. Iris, it's only like $10 or something. And then if you recommend it to other people, he gives you 50% of it anyway. So you end up making a profit, Not that it's much, I'll get a check for like, I don't know, $60 or something once a year. But it's only $10 to buy, and other people sort of, I don't even know what my affiliate code is, but it's very good. Great, lots of different settings. If anybody does a lot of stuff on Word or sort of documents or whatever, I used to do a load of proofreading for a carp fishing magazine, and I'd have hours on the screen with that sort of blue light and then black text. And there's one setting that changes the white background to black and the text to orange. And that might sound a bit weird, but your eyes are just, oh my God, it's lovely. And I do a lot of writing as well. So just typing up in Word with that kind of thing on and no flicker. It's really relaxing on the eyes, even if you don't notice the long-term benefits. It's so Iris Tech.
Yeah, good shout. Thank you very much, Ben, for the super chat. Appreciate that one. Apologies if you hear screaming. The little one's come back from her dad's today and she's a bit frustrated. Unfortunately, you can't send them to sleep without, putting something over the face. So there we go. So we've got Landers Polymis. Sorry if I've butchered your name, don't mean to, but question is, good evening, Carnivore Keto team. I've been on a no-carb diet for almost 6 months. If the liver produces a glucose source via gluconeogenesis, why do I still crave carbs? Good question. Right up Stephen's, right up Richard's, and right up my wheelhouse for sure. I think Stephen definitely wants to answer this one, so perhaps Stephen, you could lead.
Well, I thought it might be Rachel actually, because you're going to talk about dopamine, but your body has been producing glucose 24/7 since the day you came into existence. So whichever way you're eating, and when you're fasting, you're used to it because it's demand driven. So anything that's demand driven is very unlikely to excite your brain. And it's also not going through your digestive system. It's not going through your brush border of your small intestine and saying, whoopee, we've got lots of sugar. So I'm dumbing down my answer because Phil was talking about doing all the physiological stuff. I mean, I have got an honest degree in physiology, but I don't want to get into that. I just want you to understand it very basically, because a lot of people say this. They're worried about the fact that your body is producing glucose. They're so scared of glucose, but it's not glucose that's the problem. It's inappropriate elevated levels of glucose. And it's those inappropriate elevated levels of glucose that your dopamine receptors will go woohoo to. Not for everybody. And also there are other things like emotional attachments to sugary foods that obviously when your liver is producing it, you're not emotionally saying, can you produce it? So I always use this very strange example. Although it isn't a very sweet food, it is an emotional response. When I used to go to the movies, I always used to have a hot dog and a Coke. And when I went low carb, the only time I come unstuck was when I went to the movies. Now, I'm never at home and think, wow, I'm going to cook up some hot dogs and get myself a Coke. That never happened, but it certainly did in the movies. So that was purely an emotional thing. There was no nutritional need. It was purely a sort of, and Rachel will explain this better, I think. It was purely, I used to do this and it was always good. So I'm going to do it again because I'll do the same thing. I'll get the same result. That's basically it. So don't think of the glucose from your liver anything like a Krispy Kreme donut. I mean, very, very different. And like I say, even when you're fasting or when you're asleep, everybody tonight, when they're asleep, your glucose will be pumped out by the liver, and that will happen every single night because we need glucose. There is some glucose that's needed. So I hopefully my very basic answer with a real example has helped you understand that.
Yeah, go ahead, Rachel.
I was just going to say, I don't know that I really need to add much to what you said there, Stephen, because again, agree. And I think you've explained it really well. The only other thought I had was just if you're including a lot of dairy in the diet, then sometimes for some people, just with the sort of morphine-like compounds that you get from dairy, that can potentially keep cravings alive for more carby type foods. And then, of course, some forms of dairy do have some carb in them, even if it's very high fat. So I know for some people, even double cream, which is low in the casein protein, but there's still a bit of carb in there, and that can certainly drive cravings for some people too. So yeah, dairy is one to watch out for some people.
Yeah, definite. It's cheese and milk is highly addictive because of the case of morphine. But as Steve said, we are hardwired to chase dopamine. It's something that has been essential for the survival of the human race. And if we don't activate the release of dopamine through the foods that we consume, then we will find that through other means. When we've been living a lifestyle that's high in foods that contain anti-nutrients, it blocks the body's ability to create dopamine. So we go through and we reach for the sweet fixes, which gives us that dopamine fix. 6 months in isn't an awful long time. It probably took me well over 12 months, I'd say, before all of my cravings and things went away. And Rachel will probably have a better understanding and more knowledge about this. But I think even though the body's an incredible tool and we heal and repair, coming off a lifetime of drug abuse, for a better term, we've spent 30 or 40 years consuming this drug or in one form or another. And then we sort of expect it all to clear up within 2 or 3 months or 6 months. And I think the human body is a lot more complex. I think it's going to take a little bit longer than 6 months. So persevere. But as Rachel said, it could still be a craving from the case of morphine in the milk or cheese. Or it could be a lack of salts. You could be craving salt. So try salt in your meals. Potassium is highly important as well. So be sure if you are salting with sodium that we need. You also need potassium, 4-to-1 ratio potassium to sodium. I find that I crave salt in the same way that I used to crave sugar. My body tells me now if I need extra salt on my food or if I need to take electrolytes. So yeah, that's my 2 penneth.
Richard, am I going to die because I've been having salt or sodium ratio potassium at 2-to-1?
No, look at the foods that we've been consuming our entire existence. Yes, it can make us unwell. I've got a fantastic chart. We haven't got time to look at this at the moment, but I've broken down all of the animal proteins that we would consume, predominantly being carnivore. Now, with the exception of eggs and milk, egg contains enough nutrients to grow a baby, and milk is designed to feed a baby. Now, beyond that, calcium is incredibly low. Next highest is magnesium, then it's sodium, then potassium. And potassium outweighs everything else in nature, 4-to-1. But we've prioritized sodium, typically living a keto carnivore lifestyle. And for right reason. We come into this lifestyle, we suffer with keto flow because we're coming away from these foods that are having this impact on blood glucose. Insulin's dropping, it signals the kidneys to release sodium from those 4 points in the nephrons in the kidneys. So now sodium's dropping. So we replace sodium and we go overboard with, not that we can go overboard with sodium because sodium is essential. We need anywhere between 4 to 10,000 milligrams, possibly even higher per day. But we forget about potassium, and the more sodium we consume, sodium depletes potassium. So, it's not gonna kill you. But I just think that we're not hitting the optimal range if we're not replacing some of the lost potassium. But luckily, the lifestyle that we live is as nature intended. It's very high in potassium. All the meats that we consume contain lots and lots of potassium, but we don't do the things that we used to do. We don't eat the marrow from the bones. We don't crush the bones up, and we don't cut meats out and put it on the ground. And it's not absorbing the minerals, that we would consume during our evolutionary period. During the Paleolithic and Stone Age periods, we would be consuming 15,000 milligrams plus of potassium per day. I don't think we're anywhere near that generally, unless you eat an awful lot of meat. But the ratio, as Steve pointed out in the live that we did on Sunday, it's not necessarily the volume of the electrolytes that we put in, but the ratio. And coming back to a point that Rachel made earlier in regards to migraines, I used to suffer severely with migraines to the point that they would make me blind. Since going keto and carnivore, I barely suffer with them. If I do now, it's through lack of sleep or stress. And working for yourself, I'm incredibly stressed all the time. But I'm off my meds. I was on 3 different medications. I would suffer with these daily debilitating migraines every day. And further investigation into going down the keto and carnivore lifestyle led me down to adequate ratio of electrolytes. Electrolytes are so important. If we can't get them from quality foods that we consume, then add them in. But unfortunately, the food that we eat these days isn't as nutrient dense as it once was because, of the glyphosate, as Phil mentioned earlier. Our lands are desertified. Our nutrients are devoid. What used to be is no longer. And that's not to say, you can't get lots of these things from animal proteins, but sometimes I think we need to look outside the box. So a few things for food for thought there.
Yeah,
Excellent.
definitely. And could I just get in on the dairy thing? Because Richard made a really good point there that dairy, and eggs are designed to make small animals into big animals. And past that point, it's probably the only thing that I agree with vegans about, that, milk is for young animals while they're growing up. And some people seem to get away with it, and it's too much to go into here, but it's been something really fascinating to me at the moment. But have a listen if anybody's interested in this to it's on my YouTube channel under my name, or on the Red Pill Buddhist podcast with Zofia Clements from Paleomedicina in Hungary, who, at the Sheffield conference, and Ben and I were wandering around with her in the Peak District and whatever, and she made this statement that raw milk is worse than pasteurized milk. And long story short, pasteurized, it ruins the lactase, can't deal with the lactose, so people get an initial reaction, but it also knocks out some of the growth factors. And in raw milk, the growth factors are still there, which long term can cause unusual cell replication, too much growth in an animal that shouldn't still be growing, so more cancers and whatever down the line. But it's addictive. I don't think it's ideal. A lot of people seem to get on with it okay. As somebody who's had autoimmunity in my past, I can say that it's not ideal, because we are like the expression that was made up for bipolar people, like everybody else, only more so. And so we can feel that sort of thing initially. It's not good. We don't need it, and it's addictive. So have a listen to that. It's and also, as the last questioner said, he's going to take his the milk out of his coffee and whatever. But also bear in mind that coffee is it's a neurotoxin. Caffeine was invented by plants to destroy, creatures that were trying to eat it. It's not that great for us. I'm sorry to spoil the fun. Look, I have the odd brandy. That's fun. I know it's not ideal. I never got into the coffee addiction, but it's not great. So, if you want to really see that baseline, just, as somebody with autoimmunity and who deals with a lot of autoimmune clients, get back to beef, lamb, salt and water, make it very fatty, and just see where you are, and then reintroduce things one at a time, maybe one a week, and see where you are with that, because that's the only way you're going to find out, not by dropping out one thing at a time when you're eating 20 different things.
Yeah, nice one. That was a good discussion, actually. We've got another question coming up on electrolytes soon, so we'll avoid answering anything about electrolytes until that question, because it's going to be quite an interesting one. I think we've all got different opinions on this one. But yeah, the next one is a question about bioimpedance scales. So in future, please, guys, put a Q before the question. Oftentimes I miss questions because I can't see them because the screen is so far away from me. So I did have to look forward to actually find them, which is really irritating sometimes. But anyway, so the question is, are bioimpedance any good, or even just a track change in fat, muscle, water? I have a condition that affects muscle, similar to sarcopenia or fibrosis. So want to track change. So they don't have access to a DEXA scan. I'll quickly answer and say, I use this as a method to track my body composition, but I appreciate it is not the most accurate, in that if you don't do it at the same time of day, when the same hydration level, you've been to the toilet, not been to the toilet, things like that, that'll throw it off completely. And now if you're doing it, you're having the same food every day, regimented, weighing yourself at the same time, it gives you a reliable trend. And I've been using that successfully for about 2 years now. So I found it's good to at least obviously weigh yourself. But if you look at the picture from a muscle building or muscle maintenance standpoint, you can appreciate you're not going to gain 10 kilos in a month. So the 1 kilo that comes on the scale, you can be pretty sure, as long as you're not binging on loads of carbs and sugar, that it's going to be lean muscle mass. Obviously, as long as your hydration state is the same. So I found it reliable to track, although not accurate. So it can produce a good trend on a chart, which is quite useful. So I'd recommend them myself. I do recommend a brand which is in my YouTube channel links below somewhere. It's a Renfo body fat analyzer scale. The other method you can use, a bit more fiddly, is to use a body fat caliper. So that'll give you an indication of your body fat levels and your weight, and therefore you can work out your lean body mass. I do have a video on my YouTube channel which took me about 7 hours to make, which is me sticking myself with digital body fat calipers to work out what my body fat level was. I came out at between 7 and 9%, depending on which test I used. Am I 7 to 9% body fat? No, but I can use that as a reliable indicator to track change because I can measure the thickness of my skin at a given point in time. So I might pass the question on to Richard, see what he's found quite useful.
Still muted. So yeah, I invested in an Inbody machine going back 2 years ago for clients and customers to use, and I found an incredible tool for competing when I was competing professionally. But the calipers, for the sake of £5 on Amazon, they are incredibly accurate. I know you said there was a bit of a difference between the 7 and the 9, but to track whether you were losing fat, they are ideal. I never did the conversion into fat percentage because I'm not a believer that age has that much of an impact in regards to the way that other people would say so. But I would measure take the measurement in millimeters, and I would know if my body fat was going down. But the Inbody machine, if your local gym has one, is 99% accurate to a DEXA scan. The home ones I found to be highly inaccurate, to the point where a week before competition, where I was probably 2 to 3% body fat, it told me that I was 23. So it, although it was lower than the week before, so it's okay for a gauge. But to be honest, I think the cheapest alternative, body fat calipers, are ideal for measuring to see if you're going in the right direction. And as Jonathan said, any fat mass gained is a slow process. Top end, we've probably got the capability of gaining maybe 10 pound of lean mass in a year. So that's around 0.8 pounds per month. We see these people with ridiculous sort of measurements posted on YouTube. I've gained 10K in a month, and they may have gained 10K, but it's 10K of other fluids and whatever else. But lean muscle does take a long time. But the fat calipers on Amazon, £5, or go to the local gym, and I'm sure they've got an Inbody or an equivalent that you could use.
Yeah, good shout. Rachel and Phil, do you want to add to that at all?
Nothing from me.
Yeah. So Coach Stephen just had to leave us. We're a bit overdue. We're still behind on about 3 or 4 questions. I think Rachel's going to leave soon as well, so I wanted to make sure we address her and obviously thank her for coming on tonight. Appreciate her time. It is late, and she's doing all the biohacks she can to be on here tonight. So that goes well in my book. So
thanks for having me.
Cheers, Rachel.
Yeah. Thanks, Rachel.
Yeah. So then there's 3. Endurance. Okay. Right. Our next question is from OG Aesthetics. Carnivore and potassium supplementing. I did carnivore on only sea salt and I felt extremely weak. Brain fog, anxiety, depression, no energy, thoughts. With this sort of question, I think usually context is important, because did you try it last week or did you try it a year ago? If you tried it a year ago and you're still having these issues, you've probably tried all the things we're probably about to suggest to you. So I'll probably book a consultation with myself, Phil, Stephen, Richard, anyone else, to try and figure out what's going on. It probably requires a lot of context, but I'm sure one of you guys will be able to give some pointers, perhaps.
Yeah. Again, sorry, Phil. Go on. Do you want to?
No, go on. Just quickly. I mean, it depends how far into the adaptation phase was. It's hard to tell. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. It as I said earlier, it can take an awful long time to adapt. I noticed that my strength fell through the floor for months when I began my keto journey. To finish bodybuilding last year, being incredibly strong for my size. But it's a number of contributing factors. It does take an awful long time to upregulate all those pathways and enzymes and digestive system. The monocarboxylate transporters, which allow us to utilize beta-hydroxybutyrate to this maximum capacity, can take an awful long time to upregulate. The enzymes to go with it also. Sodium is usually a fantastic tool to compensate for keto flu and loss of fluid. But weakness is usually to do with leverage in the muscle. So if you've recently began carnivore or keto, you've probably lost the glyco and all the water, and it's the leverage that makes us strong. Plus, you've got this other contributing factor with energy. You may not be fully adapted and therefore not able to utilize beta hydroxybutyrate efficiently. But supplementing with electrolytes can usually help. Sodium is usually the preferred, but potassium is also equally important. We need potassium for the sodium-potassium pump. Again, as nature intended, I'd aim for a 4-to-1 ratio. But creatine can also make a massive difference. Creatine will help fill the muscle with volume as well, so it might help negate any short-term weakness as you progress further. But it can take 12 months to fully adapt. I've seen people adapt sooner. I've seen people not be hindered at all. But for me, it did take 6 to 12 months. I was still improving and feeling benefits 12 months in. So I think it's just, more context is required, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. What the questions I'll be asking are you eating enough fat with your diet? Is your diet some kind of weird high protein rabbit starvation diet that makes everyone feel low? Sounds pretty obvious, but I know a lot of people that will do 300-400 grams of protein with 20 grams of fat and like, oh, I'm eating chicken breast and I feel dreadful. Or they'll be eating fatty beef, ground beef in the pan, and the pan will be laden with loads of dripping tallow that comes off it, but then they won't actually drink the tallow. That you have to have the fat with the protein. By that point, if you're suffering that much, I would seriously book a consultation. It seems like something that could be quite easily resolved. I noticed myself, I got the same experience when my insulin ran a bit too low. That's what I personally found. How do I say insulin? I wasn't testing my insulin, but when I felt like my protein was either too high with not enough fat, or I was in a phase where I was dieting. So when you're not putting enough substrate for your body, your insulin will just run lower. If you don't have that signal to the kidneys, as Rich explained slightly earlier in the chat, you feel like crap. The other thing as well might not be potassium. It could be calcium, could be magnesium, could be adaptation. It could just be that you're undereating. A lot of context is required, I think, for this sort of question. But Phil, do you have anything to add to that at all?
Yeah, well, it could be raised from space or a multi-dimensional entity attachment. You just
most
never
probably.
know. I don't know. It again, as Jonathan says, need more context. Yeah.
Fair, yeah. We've got another question from Andy. If you don't know your age, how old would you be? I'll be about 90. What about you guys?
Well, I was a lot older about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
When I think of how I felt, definitely a lot older. And I think Richard too. I mean, Richard, I've got to get you on the podcast seriously, because you've got an amazing story and I'd love to track that in more detail.
Brilliant.
So, you just look at Richard's profile pic on his Facebook. It's just ridiculous. It's like an anatomical diagram, isn't it? And
it's like a statue.
I know, to think where he came from, struggling up the stairs as a Mr. Creosote there, well done, mate. Seriously.
Oh, cheers, man. I appreciate that. It's
from fatigue to Ironmans and endurance sports. That's mad.
Yeah, life changing. I'm 40 in January, but I feel 18. I'm definitely the healthiest and fittest that I've ever been. I'm not as big as I was when I was competing in bodybuilding, but I haven't trained weights in probably over a year. Not because I've lost the love for weights, but I'm training in the sport of duathlon and triathlon. So it's a complete 180. But I feel like I train now with youngsters, 18, 20-year-olds. Some of these are British champions, half my age, and I'm keeping up with them and sometimes even beating them. I could not have done that on the lifestyle that I was living prior. So I've, Benjamin Button. I think we're all Benjamin Buttons.
Definitely. I mean, I'm apart from my left knee that's taken a hell of a hammering from the mistakes that I made and allowing inflammation to get in there. I mean, I'm 61 and I still feel about 18. I mean, every bodily system seems to work absolutely perfectly, except that left knee that needs some work, you know. But yeah, it's amazing. You know, as Anthony Chaffee often says, we're designed to live to about 120, 130. So, you know, I'm only just approaching middle age now.
Yeah. And I agree with that. With the research that I've done, the body is well capable of 120. And when I was in my mid-20s, I was so ill. So my whole family are riddled with all sorts of illness and diseases, you know, to this date. And I was the worst. And I used to suffer with these severe migraines that would make me blind. I was on 3 different medications. I used to suffer with these nosebleeds, severe nosebleeds, to the point that they thought that I may have had a brain tumor. And he was going down that route of investigation. And we used to joke about me not seeing my 30th birthday. And I genuinely resigned to the fact that I wasn't going to see my 30th birthday. Now, if I don't make 100, I'm going to be incredibly disappointed. I don't know if the damage that I've already done has maybe taken the extra 20 off, but you know, that's something that I think would be an awesome debate for us one evening. Is the human body intelligent enough or capable enough of repairing maybe some of the damage that we've done in our earlier days? Or is it a case of, you know, you've got to pay the piper, what's done is done, but you can repair what's going forward? Because the body is designed to heal and repair. But I can't help but feel that what I've done has taken X amount of years off the end of my life. But now I know, you know, with what I'm doing now, that my life will be prolonged considerably further than it would have had I not made those changes. But yeah, it's, you know, I wish I knew then what I know now. But had I not been in that situation of being so ill, so unwell, I probably wouldn't have looked to make that change in the first place. So I guess it's coming back to these affirmations and gratitudes. You know, I'm grateful that I was unwell, because I would not be with you guys, you know, tonight. If I was hunky-dory in my 20s, I may have persevered and carried on drinking 4 nights a week and partying and drugs and whatever else. And, you know, maybe I'd be in an incredibly unwell state now. But so, yeah, I'm grateful that I was unwell in my 20s, because it's brought me to you guys.
You know what? I think that's beautiful, because it's like my book. I called it Arthritis, the Best Thing That Ever Happened to Me, that I wrote about 10 years ago. And it is, it wakes you up, doesn't it? It really does. But when you say, can the body repair? I think it can. I mean, I don't know about certain things with certain sort of structural things, like I still focus on this left knee, you know, and this right wrist. You know, that I didn't figure out what was going on, that it was obviously arthritis in the early 90s, you know, and I'd be playing drumming gigs and I'd have to put my wrist in a bucket of ice, and they diagnosed it as Kienbock's disease, which is an avascular necrosis of the lunate bone, which is bullshit. Actually, it wasn't that. But luckily I didn't know that back then, or I'd have probably taken their meds. But, you know, I've lost, there's that much difference in the you know, how much movement. I've got it back that way, so I can play really fine, but I probably need to do more work on that. And I got it out of 30 joints with no damage. But I think it's also an emotional thing, because certain emotions go to different parts of the body, and it depends if you've got that emotional stuff sorted. If you're very chilled, if you've got no stress, if you've got that gratitude, you'd maybe do a bit of EFT, a bit of tapping, other sort of, you know, methods to get rid of childhood traumas, things like that. Get it out of where it's being channeled to in the body, which is our warning panel, you know, of warning lights. You know, it goes into my left knee. It's worries about moving forward in life, you know, making progress, this kind of thing. That's knee. Wrist is a different emotional thing. I won't get into it all. But to have got it out of just the general inflammation, out of like 30 joints with no damage, why did it hit those two? You know, no rheumatologist's ever going to answer that, because they have no idea. So if you get all the stress is out and the mitochondria work beautifully, these cells turn over, don't they? So if you get all of those areas covered, yes, I believe that the body can completely rejuvenate itself. It's just the work that needs to be done. The basis of it is a great diet. You know, it's light, it's getting rid of the EMFs, getting grounded, getting all that kind of thing, sun exposure. But it's also about all the emotional side and even the spiritual side. And you get that all right, yes, the body can rejuvenate. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think, as we said earlier, diet is a massive component, but it's all of these other things that that seem to come as we gravitate further down this journey. We look at all of these other things, don't we? And I think they're all important. But there was a comment that just popped up there about the telomeres. And I can't remember. I didn't see quite what it was. Oh, there we are. So even research. Yeah, they can. So meat, particularly beef. Or
there was that study, wasn't there, where it was the only food that increased the length of the telomeres.
Yeah, which is absolutely incredible. So there's no vegetable on the planet that showed that it could do that. So I know that we can heal and repair, but can we buy back lost years? I guess is the question, isn't it? Can we turn over the cells X amount of time within a lifespan, and regardless of diet and lifestyle and everything else that we put on top, can we gain those years back? I guess I have to wait. Another 80 years to find out. Yeah,
true. It's like we can live and wonder. I don't know. Like both my parents are 60 plus. My nan's now about 92 in 2 weeks, something like that. I've tested for the longevity gene. I'll be a pretty big, tall guy to live to 100, I think, but I think it's quite unlikely myself. Just knowing the damage I've done my body already. Probably not Phil's damage, vegan, vegetarian for so long, probably not going to do that much. I don't know. But being tall and big is certainly contraindicated. So I'd probably be fared better doing Richard's sort of approach, being a bit lighter,
Would you ever come away from the bodybuilding, Jonathan? It's like, it was my life for so long, and I never thought that I would, and I'm not saying that I'd never go back to it either, but, I felt fit and healthy when I was bodybuilding, but I feel fitter and healthier now that I've gravitated down this. And I think I'm missing a trick, because I should still be doing resistance training really, but I'm just trying to focus so much in one area, which is what I did with the bodybuilding, that everything else is slipping away. But do you think that's something that you may reduce in the future and maybe look at something more towards the cardio, or do you think that it's it's just weights and resistance training for the rest of your days?
Honestly, I mean, the cardio for me has never been something I've really enjoyed. Never got a kick out of it. I used to be a sprinter. Like, that's my thing. Like, how to be really strong and really fast. That was my big thing. Looking back, I spoke to someone yesterday about this in a live stream, and I was like, could I have been an elite sprinter, like best in this country? I absolutely believe so. I don't think anyone has the determination or drive or passion towards sporting endeavors that I do. I just don't see people, maybe yourself, Richard, that just go balls deep at it, they sort of raise the question, how many years of your life would you give up for an Olympic gold medal? I'd probably give up 30 of them. That's my psychotic nature. I don't know. I had the genetics to do it. My dad, extremely fast when he was a young lad. My brother, the same. We've got athletic genes in us. I was running 11-second 100-meter sprints at like 15 years old. So I could do it. I'd look at that sort of thing probably more so than like the cardio side of things, like long distance stuff.
Yeah.
I'd still like to do resistance training. I have tamed it back quite a lot. I used to train 15 to 20 hours a week. I now train about 3. So
sorry, guys.
It's a bit different. Sure, yeah.
I can't be arsed with it anymore. I do the occasional bit of resistance training, but I'll step it up a bit. But having owned a gym in the late 90s, and I wasn't very healthy back then, but I was big. But that was because of what I was eating and all the other stuff. Can I just whiz through some questions really quick from my YouTube channel?
Yeah, which ones are they?
They're piling up there. There's one here. So, talking biohacks, can you recommend earthing shoes in Europe? Well done. How did you bring that up? You're a clever bugger, aren't you?
So, Phil, on the StreamYard, if you look, I think maybe to your right, there's something which says like comments. There's live on one side, then starred on the other side. So any questions that come up or super chats automatically will flag up, basically. So appear on that side of the screen.
From there. That's amazing. Well done.
Yeah.
Yeah, so can you recommend earthing shoes in Europe? I could only find some in the US, and shipping is very expensive. Thanks for all you do. I honestly, I don't know. I'll put it up maybe in the comments on my channel. Somebody I know has got some that are very, very good, and he's even tested them with various little electrodes shoved into the ground. It's just as good as being barefoot. But I think the best earthing shoes are no shoes at all, I have to say. But there's also kits. Yeah, there's also little kits that you can get to turn any shoes into earthing shoes, where you get some kind of things that come out the back. Okay, quick one: pork fat or beef suet to increase fat for neuromuscular disorder. 12 years undiagnosed. Best bet is my nerves and muscles aren't talking to each other. Okay, I think that beef fat is the best fat. It's the lowest in the linoleic acid. It's cows and sheep have really been fed usually what they're intended to eat better than pigs have. So although pork fat is, if it's ideal, it's the lowest in deuterium, which is another rabbit hole. But for this also, if you've got something neuromuscular, anything neurological, I would say also include a bunch of fish. Wild caught fish only. It's not an old wives' tale that fish is a brain food. I've had a bunch of oysters today, actually, but it's not got enough fat, really. But I mean, get that in as well. But beef and lamb fat. Anybody else on that? I think that's the best stuff.
Yeah.
Really.
I agree. Pork generally contains about 20% more linoleic acid, but there is an argument that if it's fresh, it's non-oxidized, and I think that there is a big difference between non-oxidized and oxidized. But that said, I think that beef is by far way more beneficial. But what I would throw in now, when you mentioned lamb, I've been looking into lamb a lot lately, and lamb does contain a little bit more linoleic acid than beef, but the amino profile and vitamin and mineral profile gives beef a run for its money, and it almost beats it on every point that I looked at. So I've began increasing my lamb content. Beef I eat every day, and I've started putting lamb in an awful lot as well. So I think lamb, we play this grass-fed beef all the time, but I think we miss a trick with lamb. I think it's but also the omega-3s.
I think it comes from the States, doesn't it, where they don't get enough
accessibility.
Yeah, and so everybody goes on about beef, and most of the carnivore guys are over in the States who sort of go on about this stuff.
Yeah, lamb
seems to top out. Yeah, it tops out the omega-3 in terms of ruminant meat.
Yeah,
it's pretty equal 1-to-1. So I mean, if someone's having neurological issues, obviously the oily fish, lamb would be something to certainly look at as well. I've noticed myself, if I eat too much lamb fat, I start to feel nauseous. So that tells me it's perhaps not poisonous. It's just my body saturated with the nutrition within it. Now I know people that get nauseous with pork fat, beef fat. Maybe there's certain compositions of foods which are a bit, not so great for us. I mean, I've been eating oily fish every day now for about 4 or 5 weeks straight. My body obviously hasn't tapped out that nutrient density profile yet. So that kind of tells me it's fine. Now, if I start feeling sick and nauseous from it, my digestion's a bit upset, then you switch it out. But I think there's certainly lots of good foods out there. Like Phil said earlier, eat the food that makes you feel good. Try it out. One or two of your 3 meals a day or 2 meals a day. Have that with beef. Try it with lamb. Do what Rich is doing. Add a bit in, see what happens. It's a good shout.
Yeah, I'd just say if you're autoimmune, pork and chicken can be an issue. It's a shame because I could eat crackling all day long, every day. Pork crackling, best thing ever. But it's not so good. Hey, Andrew.
And wild boar, yeah.
Andrew Scarborough's popped up. Hey, Andrew. He likes wild boar.
I like Andrew a lot. Great guy.
He does. Andrew does. He chases down his own wild boar and brings them down with his teeth. Yeah. He's a beast.
Yeah.
Andrew's great. I had dinner with him a while ago in Liverpool, and I've never seen anybody so strict. You know, he'll even ask what they've cooked it in and whatever. And this was in a Brazilian restaurant. You know, when I'm out, I'll do junk food, but by junk food I mean pork and chicken. Andrew won't, and the consequences are huge for Andrew, I guess. But what a hero! Glioblastoma. Here he is, 10 years in, and looking 10 years younger than he is, and looking fit and healthy. And yeah, love Andrew. Well done, mate. Inspiring.
Yeah, I agree.
Rick's funny question for the day. Can you explain why I seem to be the only person who is not stimulated by junk foods or sweet tastes? I don't know. You're not human. What do you guys think?
lucky you. It's you know, I still get cravings now and again. And do you know what put the spanner in the works for me was last Christmas. I went to my mum's house. She cooked food for myself and the rest of the family. And she offered not to cook or put specific foods on my plate, but I didn't want to put it out of her way. So I ate whatever she cooked. For months and months after that, I was getting cravings for sweet foods. It took me a long time to get over that. But that said, I think it's also important for people to understand that this lifestyle has got to be sustainable. So, and coming back to a point that Phil mentioned earlier, once you've healed your gut, we can afford to put these other foods back in because our gut is healed. We're no longer suffering with this intestinal permeability, but we have this heightened sense. So the second we put something in that our bodies don't agree with, it'll tell us straight away. And that's an incredible tool to have. It makes us highly attuned to specific foods. I've noticed recently, coming back to another point Phil just mentioned, chicken doesn't seem to agree with me much lately. I seem to be having adverse effects to chicken. I just hope it doesn't come with eggs because I love my eggs, but it's got to be sustainable. So if you want to go out for food and, you know, don't feel that you have to be as strict as, you know, we all talk about being super strict. You don't have to be once you become adapted, as long as you are confident in your ability to continue on with a lifestyle the next day. You know, that little piece of cake or whatever it is, ice cream, isn't going to cause any damage as long as you have, you know, the mental capacity, I guess, to maintain to the lifestyle. But yeah, I do something similar to Andrew when I'm out. I always ask what they cook in and rather than sounding fussy, I will tell them that I'm allergic to vegetable oils. So the second you mention you have an allergy to something, their ears prick up. So, you know, I'll just say, look, I'm allergic to vegetable oil, seed oils. Can you not cook in the oils, or could you use butter, you know, tallow or ghee, or just not cook in any oil at all? And I might ask them to cook it in a different way. But there are a lot of restaurants that are forthcoming. The chains don't seem to be. If you go to, you know, the Sizzlers or, you know, the Harvesters, and they're just going to cook it as it is. But you know, these support the smaller family run restaurants. They've always got your best interest at heart, I think.
It's much harder to eat out over here. My go-to on the road is 2 triple cheeseburgers, no bun, no sauce. So it's just the processed cheese, which isn't too great, but I don't really care. Then a beef burger that comes with it. It makes it more palatable, Phil. That's the thing. The other one is, I think, sizzling pubs. I think you just said, Richard. So there's a way you can get like a burger patty with a slice of cheese in it with an egg, I think. Another one is Weatherspoons. Get the skinny burger, just don't eat the salad, then add an extra patty to it, something like that. That's pretty much your best bet in terms of like chains that we would all know, and some of us love, some of us don't love that much. But like Rich said, they do cook these things in seed oils a lot of the time. They don't really cater to you as an individual. So
yeah, I was talking to Sophia, that little video we made of her at the Sheffield thing out when we were walking, and we came to the conclusion that dairy's best if you eat the processed plastic stuff, but don't actually eat it, just wear it as a hat. So that's the way to deal with the dairy question. Stick to the processed stuff and wear it as a hat.
Yeah. Right, this is our last question for tonight. This is like a 60 to 90 minute live stream. We've gone probably a little bit over by the time we get through this. I am sitting on a cracked tailbone with no cushion, so it does hurt a lot. I don't know how the other guys are going, but I'm a bit messed up right now. Unfortunately, I'm hosting this, so I've got to kind of stay. But Mike's question is, regarding health hacks, do any of you sleep on the floor? I find it to allow better recovery and better body position control, i.e. sleeping on the back and with no pillow. What do you guys think?
My sleep hack is raising the bed 6 inches at the head.
At the head, yeah.
And doing the inclined bed thing. I don't think it's so important about which actual surface you sleep on, unless you're sleeping on the ground outside and grounded, in which case that's a load better. But sleeping on the floor, if you like it, great. If you don't. I don't know.
Yeah, I found that when I sleep on, I find I sleep better on the floor. Yeah, the progression of my business has seen various transitions in my life, one of which involved me sleeping under the desk in the church that I was renting and running the business from when I was technically homeless. Story for another day, maybe one to go into on your podcast, Phil. But it was the best night's sleep that I'd ever had. I was on the floor and my head was raised slightly, but a lot lower than, you see these people that pile pillows 3 high. I can't. My pillows are like biscuits. I like a flat pillow. I like my head slightly raised, but not overly. But I found it very difficult to sleep in a bed when I did actually start sleeping in the bed again. So if I can't sleep, I do actually preference the floor. So like a really homeless bum. But it's
whatever works.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I whiz through things some really, really quickly from my YouTube channel, just really fast, since they're there, I've been ignoring them. Hi guys,
which
I'm hard about going all carnivore, but I'm just kind of shit with food. I just don't think I'll ever get to eat such things as liver, heart, kidneys. Look, if you're healthy, you don't need to eat that stuff. Think how big an animal is. Think how small the organs are. A load of tribes actually throw them to the dogs. It's only when you're healing up, all you might need is about 400 grams of liver a week as a vitamin pill. It's not a big deal. Eat fatty meat, go all carnivore. When we're coming across from a lifetime of eating other stuff, we think we're never going to be able to do that. 90 days in, you'll be going, really, I'm not really craving that other stuff, and I see what's happening. So your tastes will change, they'll refine. Just a quick one there. Anybody else quickly on that one? Just a couple more and we can do them really fast.
I agree. I know lots of carnivores that don't eat any organ meats. I eat as nature intended, as Phil rightly says. The organs make up a small part of an animal. The muscle meat would predominate the diet for me. I still eat organ meats, but I'm not as wedded to them as I once was. But you can do this purely on muscle meats. You don't need to consume the organ meats, and do it step by step, incremental changes. You don't have to jump in, deep with both feet deep in. Just make these incremental changes. Prioritize your animal proteins and build your meals around that, and see how you feel.
Good shout. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. What are the other questions for?
Another one is steaks, pork, lamb, chicken, normal cuts, then yes, but is that enough, or do I have no chance? I've not seen any weekly menus to see if I can go for this. Love you guys, by the way. I don't know. I mean, it entirely depends on what it is your goals are and what you're trying to heal. If you're coming from a regular diet, just eat anything. If you're reasonably healthy, you're going to find cutting out all the plants and the seed oils and all that crap is going to give you huge advantages. If you're trying to fix something autoimmune, then chicken and pork is not ideal. It's a difficult one to answer. You don't need any weekly menus. Just eat whatever meat you want. People always want weekly menus and cookbooks and things. This is the stuff from the diet you've come from. Just put some meat in the oven, put it in a pan, put it in a slow cooker, make sure it's fatty enough and eat it till you're full. It's really that simple. That's it.
Well, you'll find as well, like if you ask most carnivores, they probably only eat about 4 or 5 different foods. It's just maybe a slightly different cut, a way of cooking it. You can rotate it, for a week straight. I'll do slow cooked beef, like a beef brisket, then for a week straight, I'll do chicken thighs and oily fish with loads of butter in it. I'll get sick of that pretty quick, so I'll go back to the beef again. Then I'll have a few cups of milk and I think, oh, that's great. I feel a bit, I don't know, a bit of indigestion now. Okay, I won't have that for a few days. It's all play it by ear. If it comes from an animal, comes from a butcher, you'll probably be fine. Fish is fine as well. You don't need menus. You don't need plans. You just need, 4, 5, 6 foods that you can tolerate, really. Or in Phil's case, 1 or 2. What about you, Richard?
Yeah, do you know, one of the questions that I quite often get is, or concerns, is that, the diet's restrictive or the lifestyle is restrictive. To which my answer is usually, let's run through what you would eat on a typical Monday. So they give me a list of all the things that they would eat on Monday, and I'd write these down, listening intently, and then, well, what would you eat on a Tuesday? Oh, well, the same thing. So, you look at carnivore or keto as being restrictive, but we're creatures of habit. We tend to eat the same thing. When you go shopping, you go to the same parts in the supermarket. You pick up from the same shelves. You go down the same aisles. Bar a different Mr. Kipling cake or whatever it is that you're picking up on that day. The foods that you're cooking are the same, and that's exactly what it is when you become keto or carnivore. Except you get to eat more of all the lovely, juicy, succulent animal proteins that you would have only portioned incredibly small on your plate and filled with other crap like chips and potatoes and vegetables. But I don't find it restrictive. And I think, as Jonathan just said there, you can cook steak many ways. You can cook eggs various different ways. You don't need to overcomplicate things. Just eat the foods you like. Eat when you're hungry. Stop eating when you're full. And it's as simple as that.
I'll tell you what's restrictive: a full-blown autoimmune condition.
Yeah.
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah. When you can't move, it's like the thing that keeps you busy when you can't move is food. Sitting in front of the TV, Netflix, eating popcorn, chocolate bars, biscuits, and crap like that, kebabs. When that keeps you in that state, you have to get out of it. You have to flip that switch. So Phil was fortunate enough 8 years ago to sort of come across this sort of way of eating and sort himself out. So I'm all for it.
Yeah. If you want to watch Netflix and you want to put something in your mouth, I mean, maybe smoke some crack, something like that, something a bit healthier than vegetables, that kind of thing. Okay, quick one here. Question: I have hemochromatosis. Any knowledge amongst you of whether it's going to be an issue? Eat beef daily. Great chat, lads. Hemochromatosis. Look, these things are just a marker. They're a snapshot. You get these blood results and whatever, and these funny diagnoses. Is our ancestral diet going to harm that? There are loads of people who have reversed this. Loads of people say that you have to go and give blood all the time and that kind of thing. I don't think so. A bunch of people, I've heard have reversed this condition. And is the condition even a problem in the first place? If you're feeling really sick with it, and that might be some kind of a symptom of something, I don't know. But unless you're really sick, stay away from doctors. They freak you out. Eat your beef, you'll be fine.
Richard and I both work with a lady that's got hemochromatosis. She's been at this for quite a long time. I'd say like 5 or 6 years. So she has to donate blood. Her blood iron levels get too high. That's just what happens. In which case, I actually investigated this a little bit further. I was like, why would we get here through human evolution to just be absolutely nailed with some sort of autoimmune condition, disease, which prevents us from eating our primary source of food? Doesn't make sense. So I asked Barkay about it, Professor Barkay, and he's like, well, nature doesn't make mistakes. It's obviously doing that for a reason, to protect the body from something else. What that is that's trying to protect it from, who knows? Evolution puts itself forward in such a way to eliminate the weak strains, the weak among us, what have you. Perhaps it was a recessive gene that just came up out of nowhere for no reason, which is completely out of random. Who knows? I'd keep an eye on your iron levels, things like that. I'd also keep an eye on just your symptomology. If you're feeling, I don't know, metallic taste in your mouth, feel nauseous, sick, headaches all the time, electrolyte disturbance, we'll look into that. Find the right diagnostics. These sort of things, like Phil said, are just bracket terms for something that's happening to your body, a marker of some kind. But ultimately, look at your symptoms and how that's presenting your body. A disease doesn't mean you're doomed. There's varying levels of it, and it's almost like a syndrome in a way. Like, you can pick up on these things through identifying different blood markers, but ultimately, what are the symptoms? So find a way to fix the symptoms. A lot of people just draw bloodlet. That's pretty much what people do. What do you think, Richard?
Yeah, the person that you are speaking of, I had a chat with recently, and they are absolutely thriving. So whatever they're doing is working. All of the other illnesses and issues that that person was suffering from have seemed to be almost completely eradicated, I believe. So again, it's just a marker, isn't it? Keep doing what you're doing. I think if you feel good, then it must be good. And I'm a big believer in listening to my body. Coming back to cholesterol, my cholesterol's through the roof, but I feel absolutely amazing. Does that mean that I should come off eating? Should I go back to eating the detrimental foods that are going to lower my cholesterol and damage my brain and every other cell in my body just to fit into a range, a figure that somebody has just plucked out of the air, in essence? So no, I think keep doing what you're doing.
Well, you haven't attained the physique of Michael Greger, and so I think you've got a long way to go, Richard.
That's one to aspire to, Richard.
I think
your 12 a day, your daily dozen.
Daily dozen bowel movement. I think you've definitely got a quinoa deficiency there, Richard. Something to look into.
Yeah. And you've got scurvy as well.
Last one, really quick. On my channel, Jane of Fools. What do you guys think of iodine, 2% Lugols plus high-fat carnivore to shrink a thyroid nodule, or just straight carnivore? Jane, there's a video on my YouTube channel of my mum's breast cancer reversing with carnivore and Lugol's iodine. I think 2% Lugol's is irrelevant. The traditional, I think, is 5 or 7. I think it's 5. But even if you get 15%, just means it's cheaper, and you just got to work out the dosage a little bit differently with different sums. Lugol's iodine, this is kind of controversial, but I have a friend called Carno Pine who turned up on my 100% Carnivore and Beyond Facebook group and started answering questions on iodine. He was so knowledgeable and so generous with his info. He just ran out of time to be able to do it, and so he started up his own group, which is on Facebook, called Help with Iodine. He's banned from Facebook for sharing incredibly useful health information. He's banned on Facebook for 6 months at the moment, so he's not in there, but you can still join the group and look at the results. I am actually a big fan of iodine. I don't like any supplements really, but there's something about iodine, as long as you do the initial steps, with borax, maybe to get rid of the bromide that can lodge in the thyroid. There's also oxalate issue can be stuck in the thyroid. If you've got a load of fluoride and whatever, it's like my missus has had Graves' disease because she grew up in Tanzania with a load of fluoride in the water in Arusha. You've got to get that out first, and then the thyroid can uptake the iodine. The iodine, actually, what Carno says, and this is really interesting, that some people are actually taking small doses of iodine and aggravating their thyroid. This is where the problems are coming from. He's into mega dosing of iodine, and it's kind of controversial, but I think with you tend to just excrete what you don't need with iodine, and there's a load of fear mongering about taking it among endocrinologists, who say that anyone with a thyroid condition is going to die if they take iodine. It's all bullshit. If you look in the old Merck manuals, even the cure for a thyroid storm was enormous amounts of iodine. So it's all nonsense. It is one of the things that we are deficient in, and I would say high-fat carnivore is absolutely the way to go. It will probably sort itself out in the long run, as Zofia says, from Paleomedicina, if you don't take any iodine at all. And she'd be sitting on my shoulder now giving me a slap for saying take any supplements at all. But there is something about thyroid conditions that can benefit from from iodine, specifically enormous amounts of iodine. But seriously, don't take that as advice now. It's an individual thing in your case, and it would be good to do a consult with one of us or something, or find Carno's group. But nothing wrong with iodine, nothing wrong with high fat, and that's the way to go with a thyroid nodule or any thyroid issues. And yes, please look up the work of Dr. Elizabeth Bright and Sarah Myhill re iodine and start supplementing. There we go. Yeah, definitely.
Good shout.
Okay.
Yeah, I've had mixed responses with that one, up and down really with iodine. I think a lot of people take it, maybe don't notice anything and stop taking it. I think it's more like in an acute situation where you would use it. Probably consult with Phil personally for that sort of thing, just because he's had more practice. Rich, do you have anything to add to that at all? Or?
I think you guys have covered everything. Fantastic answers.
Okay. This is the last question of the day, guys. So it's from Mike. Regarding health hacks, do any of you sleep on the floor? I found it to allow better recovery and better body position control. Sleep on the back with no pillow.
We've been through that one.
Yeah,
have we actually?
Yeah. Have I gone through a time warp? No, we've
probably. It's probably a Mandela effect or something. Yeah, I don't sleep on the floor because I can't get up from the floor. So there's my answer. But yeah, I use like 20 pillows and I don't know. I tend to sleep with the window open, as cold as possible.
Yeah, me too.
Bit of a caveman. Nothing magical, really. I try to make it easy to get out of bed. I have like things to hold on to so I don't die trying to get out of bed. So, that's about it, really.
Jesus,
yeah,
like the elephant man.
Literally, I'm so clumsy in the middle of the morning. Early in the morning. But yeah, that pretty much concludes the live stream tonight.
Awesome.
So I'm going to go through everyone's channels just so everyone can pick up who to follow, what have you. My channel is Carnivore Muscle. You'll find me at Carnivore Muscle. You'll find Phil at Phil Escott. You'll find Richard at Keto Pro. You'll find Coach Stephen Thomas BSc at Coach Stephen Thomas BSc. You'll find Rachel Brown on Instagram. I think it's just Dr. Rachel Brown. I'm not sure, but I do have her Instagram tagged in the description of this video if you're watching it on my channel. Ben Hunt, Big Fat Challenge. That's on Phil's part of the screen now if you look here. So that's the website link, which I recommend joining. It's pretty much pay what you want. You get a great library of information with live calls and chats and things. Good Q&A segments just like this. A bit more specific. So the guys will go to town with their experience and knowledge of the carnivore diet and different ancestral tenets. And have I missed anyone? No, I haven't.
No.
That's everyone. Well, there we go. Well, thanks for everyone very much for your time. Appreciate you watching, and I'm gonna end stream.
Yeah.
Hopefully.